Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for our 2024 R1 release webinar. I know people are rapidly joining right now, so I want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started on showing everything that we have got to show you today. As a reminder to everybody, we do have a chat and a Q&A. If you have questions for us, please feel free to use the Q&A. We're monitoring that. We have a number of people on our side who are monitoring that, answering those questions. If I have time, I'll try to cover those questions, but so many times we're right up to the very end and I don't get to them. So if there's something that we don't get answered, we'll definitely reach back out to you on any questions that we don't get answered. We are recording this, so you'll be able to see a copy of this and share it with any colleagues who can't make it today. It's kind of a message I can't tell people who are joining late, but they'll be able to get a copy of it too. So I'm going to get started because we do not have all day to do this. I will go ahead and share my screen here, and you'll be able to see my browser. So again, welcome to our release webinar here. You'll see our agenda. We're going to start talking about a big improvement in company policies. We're going to make our way down this list all the way down to some new reports on here. And there is more here. I think this is about all I can get in an hour. So that's what I'm doing today, is to get everything I can in within the hour. So let's start off with company policies, company policy acknowledgements. So up until today, or I should say Monday when the new version comes out, if you wanted to have your company policies and acknowledgement of those policies, you had to do it as a form in the system to get a signature on it. And that was a little bit cumbersome because if something changed, it was not easy to, show here's a new version of it and get the acceptance on that new version and things like that. So we've gone ahead and enhanced our software to handle company policies in a very easy to manage way. So I'm going to go over to the settings and show you where this is going to reside. So you'll see under General, we have a new menu item called Company Policies. When you come here, you'll see any policies. Obviously, if you come here for the very first time on Monday, you're not going to see anything, and you'll be able to add your policies, but this is where they're going to go once you start using this feature. You'll notice it is by employer. So if you go to an employer, you'll see what it looks like. And you can have policies that are no longer active. I don't have any, but you'll see how I could do that right there. All right, you'll see them listed here, and very easy to add a new one or to edit an existing one. So I'm going to click out add here just to show you this. You'll have the name of the policy there. So let's just say code of conduct policy. You'll notice here that the code itself is just using the same name, but you can change this if you wanted to say, 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that. You're certainly welcome to change that code in there. The description, you might want to have a little bit more in your description there as far as, what this is. Obviously, you could type in a lot more than just a few words here. If you need to type in several sentences, you can do that. The author here is going to default to the person who clicked add. So I'm in here as Ted, and that's why you see that. Now you can change this. So if it's somebody else actually authored the policy and you're just putting it in the system, you can certainly overwrite that with whatever. You'll see here active. Of course, it needs to be active to be viewable, but right now it's just a draft because I'm creating it. It's not going to show to anybody until I actually publish it out there. We do have version control. So you can have an initial version, and as things have changed over the life of the policy there, you'll be able to say, okay, here's version 2, 3, 4, etc. What type of content is it? So we have 3 different options here. Text is one where you'll enter in the text or copy and paste that in there, or I'll show you a great feature that we're adding. Upload, so you might have a PDF of a code of conduct or whatever it is. So you can upload that. You'll notice here, just a file upload. Or URL, perhaps you have it published out there somewhere on an internal website or something like that, and you want to have that available to the employee to read that way. So 3 different ways to do that right there. The group that it applies to. So if it's not for everybody, it's just a subset of employees, you can create your different groups over in HR administration and say who it applies to. And of course, you might have multiple groups that it applies to like that. Very simple to be able to put in there. All right, the start date of the policy. Now, obviously, if it's an existing policy, you could go way back and say, oh, yeah, this has been our policy since the early 90s or something like that, and put in an early date. If it's something that is new, a new policy because of whatever change is coming in, you might want to future date it, in which case it won't show to the employees until that date. So if I put down May 1st as an example, it's not going to show to the employees until May 1st comes around. And then they'll be able to see the policy and acknowledge it here. So I'll just put down 4.1 to make it easy for us. And of course, policies may expire and be replaced by other policies, and you maybe don't want a new version, you want a completely new policy, so you can expire it by putting an end date there. Now, because I chose text, we have a text field here where you could easily copy and paste something into the policy to have that information in there and show that to your employees. So you could just type in, whatever you wanted in there and use the formatting and, whatever you want to do as far as that's concerned. But you will see a button there called Generate Policy. This is where you can have the system create a policy based off of these prompts up here. So you'll see here, workplace conduct, and here's a code of conduct policy and exactly that information in there on here. And it would be, of course, different for different types of policies. So if you have a hard time coming up with exactly what you want to say, we use generative AI to generate policies based off of this. Of course, we are not responsible for the policy. We're just using the technology that's available for us to generate policies. It is your policy, so you'd want to make sure you read this and make sure this is exactly what you want to say before you publish it out to your employees. Also, because we use Gen AI, I've found in my playing with this that it does add these signature things, which you don't need to do because I'll show you here in a moment where you'll see that. So I'm going to remove that, but you can see how I can edit this. I could, change the font size. I could make it bigger, whatever I might want to do. I can, do those things on there. So if I wanted to, let's say, make this bold, you'll notice how I can do that. Right. And as I mentioned, you might want to you maybe already got it in a Word doc. You want to copy and paste it here, or just make it a file. You could do that there. Okay. You'll see down here at the bottom right, we have two options: cancel, which would undo exactly everything I've done, or I have this save draft. I also can save and publish. If I'm ready, this policy is ready to go and publish out to the groups with its effective date, I might want to save and publish this. So your choice. If I draft it, then it's going to be not published and I can come back in and publish it. But if I choose save and publish, now it is out there. Now, one thing we also have is version control. So I'm going to show you on a previous one how I can show version control, and that's right here with different history. So I initially created one here. It's been published. That means that the employees can see that current version, the one that's published. This is what I'm working on. I might want to make some changes to it. Perhaps I'm, internally people are reviewing it, and then we're going to publish out a new one. So you have that one as a draft, and then you'll notice here is this publish button. That would replace version 1 with version 2. Now, I might want to, restore an older version. Perhaps we found some problems. We want to go back to the older version. You can hit restore even after you publish one to go back to the previous version. So you have that option out there. All right. And of course, if I had more than 2, I would see 3, 4, 5, etc. out there. Now, where does this show out here in self-service? There's a couple of things, and I'll get to one of them later on. But you'll see right here a new widget. It only shows when they have an unsigned policy. So they'll see this right here. And they can go into the company policy screen. It's also available right here under company policies and resources. So either way I get there, it's going to be the same thing. Okay, so here you can see he has signed this policy. Here is the new one. And you can see what this looks like out here. This is where you might want to, like I said, you play with the formatting and so forth to make sure that it's right. Perhaps use your sandbox to get this out there. You'll notice down here at the bottom is a signature. This is using our standard signatures that's available on workflows and forms and so forth. So it's possible your employees have saved their signature, and so they can just click the icon to load their saved signature. Of course, they can, sign it or type in their signature right there. They cannot click the sign button, or the sign button won't allow them to move forward unless this is actually filled in. You'll notice signature required. They cannot blank sign it. They have to sign it. All right, and then it's going to be acknowledged. If the employee would like to return to that and see their signature, they can do that and get a signature report. Also available for managers and administrators is a screen called Team Company Policies. So I can go out there and see which employees have not acknowledged or have acknowledged the different policies that are out here. I can search by policy or by employee. So that way I can see, okay, Nate and Sean, they need to sign these policies. And I can see that right there. All right, so that's available there. And also on the admin view, you can monitor those changes. So that one is a great enhancement that came in through our CFR board. We want to put a poll out there to see how you feel about this one. So we're going to start that poll, and I think it'll pop up. There we go. I did want to remind everybody when this is over how those CFRs get to us, and you'll see that we do respond to these and we add these features into the software. A lot of what you're seeing today is CFRs. Now, of course, we have our own ideas and we're making enhancements and stuff like that, but we really take your feedback and take it to heart, and we add that stuff to the software. So if you've never done this before, anytime you're in the admin, you can come here into the Help Center and click on New Idea. And it should take me over there. I should have tested this first, but it should take you over to the thing. And it might be because it's my demo account here. That's not taking me over, but that's where you can submit your ideas for the software and, you know, provide that feedback that we use to enhance the software. This was one of those items that was highly upvoted. There was comments on it. So we took those things and we said, yeah, we got to add that in there. And we added it in there. So thank you for that request. And that's why you see it in the software. All right, so let's move on to some other changes in here. The next one that I want to talk about is compensation management improvements. And we'll talk about these other things as well. So compensation management, that is right here under compensation management in admin. And there's two things. So this is not new. Distribution rounds is not new. Default merit increase scale is new. This is part of that enhancement. So what this allows you to do is to create default increase percentage for these distribution rounds based off of the performance review score. You'll see here, I already have this scale set up, but this is very easy to set up, and you can have multiple, perhaps for different reviews and types of employees or things like that. You'll see the name there, and then here is the scale. Of course, you can do whatever you like with the scale. I'm just giving an example here. Let me show you how you would add a new one. Now, I've already finished it all, but here you'll see that. What's the minimum score? What's the maximum score? You want to include that value. In other words, like if they get a 90, is that included in that, or is it, you know, that go to the next level? And then what is the default percentage? So here, if I click on this one as an example, from 90 to 100, the default merit increase percentage is 20%. Okay, so you can set these up. This is not a requirement, but you can set these up if you would like. So that way, when a manager is doing these distribution rounds, the compensation, they can see, oh, because this is what we recommend for their performance review, you can use that, or just see it and say, oh, normally we do 20%. Now, maybe you want to give the person more or less because there's extenuating circumstances. You're certainly welcome to do that, but you can set that up if you like. Distribution rounds are where you would actually use these. Let me cancel out of here. And if you've never seen these before, this is something we've had for a little bit of time, but it's got some good enhancements to it. So the name of it, I'm just going to call this 2024 merit increases. Okay, what period? This is how it's going to show the salaries. So I'm going to say yearly, so I can see their annual salaries. The workflows, which would be configured under system configuration, that's for the approval of the changes. So it might go to, you know, the CFO, the CEO, you know, more than one person. It's up to you how you configure your workflows. When do we start doing these? So you might start in May and end of May or something like that. I'm going to do it so I can see it. I'll do 4/1, and I'm going to leave it pretty wide open. You probably wouldn't have it going for 8 months, but you know, I'm not going to judge you if you do. Oops, and then it's effective 1/1/25. Okay. Now this is where we start seeing some new fields in here. So previously we had merit to be allocated and bonus to be allocated, and you could select the grid columns that you wanted to use. Here you'll see I can actually say a percentage of the total current salary budget that I want to allocate. So if I, you know, we have a budget of 10%, I can do that, and you'll notice down to 710,000. If I wanted to do $1 million, it calculates as 14.08%. So either one of those I can use there. Same thing with bonus. I can, you know, put in a percentage, maybe 5% is our bonus pool, something like that. I can do that. Now, if I leave one of these blank, they will not be included in the compensation round when the person goes to actually fill it out. So if you don't want bonuses when you're doing it, you can simply leave this as 0. Or if it's only for bonuses, you can leave merit as 0. And of course, if I have them both in here, it would be available for both. Both those columns will be showing. Here's that scale. So that scale I created is what I'm going to use on here. We used to say, are you allowed to go over budget? Now you can say you can go over budget in merit or bonus or both. You can choose those on there. All right. And then the columns that you're going to show. Again, we have some new columns in here. Previously, we had the limits and the performance review, but we've added some other things in here that give you more information or give the managers more information about their employees, because they may want to see, oh, somebody just got an increase. So, maybe we're not going to give them another increase because they just got a raise last week, something like that. So you can include these columns in here. I'm going to do minimum and maximum and performance review result. Last effective date, I'm going to just add them all just so you can see what they look like. Now, because I chose performance review results, I have to choose which period, and I'll just do this anniversary review right there. Okay, what org structure am I going to use here? I'll choose manager. I'm going to select a manager. All right, now this is, again, some new things here. We're showing their current budget and the number of employees that this manager is managing. So I can see that. And that way, when I go to allocate their merit, I can see, oh, he's got 27 employees. He probably needs a bigger pool than maybe somebody who only has 5 employees or something like that. Here I can say how much of the total is this person going to use. So I can click on one of these two. Let's say I want to give him 10%. So now it's giving him 10% of the $1 million. And then, over here, maybe I want to put a number in for the budget. He gets 50,000 for the bonus, and that's 14% of the bonus pool. Okay, and then of course I can add other managers in there and put it all up there and make sure that it's allocated. I'm not going to go ahead and do that. If you're not ready, you can just save it and then it's like draft, just like the policies. But in this situation, I'm going to submit it so I can see what it looks like in self-service. So let me go back over here. I would get a notification letting me know that it's time to do my compensation distribution. And then this is what it looks like for the manager. So here I can see the new columns, the performance review scale, these were here before. The salary grades are there, the last change percentage. I don't have any people with changes, so there's nothing there. Obviously, they haven't gotten raises in a long time. So I can see that right there. If I had, performance reviews on there, I could say, let's apply those defaults. And it would put into this one here, this column, the default for them based off of that performance review. So if it was 10%, it would fill in 10%. All right. And then I could override it if I need to. Now, if you've never seen this before, type in 10, and then it shows you how much the increase is going to be. I could type in amount of bonus, and you'll see that, of course, is showing up here. With those budgets, if I said they are allowed to exceed it, it would allow me to go over $100,000. If not, then it would highlight in red, and I could not move forward if it was over $100,000 or $50,000. All right, so that is the changes in compensation management, tying even more deeply into the performance reviews and showing a lot more information there. A couple other things I'm going to show in human resources before we have another poll. So let's go back over to the admin side here. And you'll notice that the search here is a little bit different than it was before. So we had first name, last name, employee number, and social security number or social ID number. It's the national ID field, whatever it is called in your country, and the status. These were nothing new, but now we have this advanced filters right here. This allows you to add many more fields into your search if you need to, and save those filters that you created. So as an example, I have one here. It's called employees older than 34 and hired in the last 8 years. I don't know why I need that, but I have that. Here's the actual criteria for that right there. Their employee's date of birth is less than or equal to 1/1/1990, and their hire date is greater than or equal to 1/1/2015. So you could do that. And let me just show you how you can add conditions in here, as many as you like. And you'll see different tables you can select from. So I might say assignment detail, average hours is greater than or equal to 7. Whatever it is that I'm going to do here. And again, I could save this filter and have another one out here for whatever I want, but I'm going to go ahead and just do that and hit apply. And now I get 6 employees. Of course, if I added 10 different filters, I might get nobody because it put it too specific on what I'm looking for. But you'll see how you can use that to find the exact employees that you want and all those different fields that you might want to use out there. And there are a whole bunch of them that you can use. So we've added 6 tables, and within those tables, there's many different fields that you can use. So you'll see those out there, whatever you might need to do. And as I mentioned, you may want to save these so you can use them again. All right, if you can trash can them, you can remove all conditions. Of course, you can add as many as you like there. And then here you'll see those 6 people. If I want to clear it out, just to go back to kind of the default, hit clear all, and it's going to return back and show everybody. So that's our improvements on the searching and filtering of the employees here in the administrative side. Dependents and contacts have also received a upgrade, enhancement. So let's go and look at the dependents and emergency contacts on people. This is something I can also see in self-service, but I'm going to show you here is available there. So one is we've added the ability to make the dependent inactive. This could be a situation, perhaps they are an X and they don't want to see them on their open enrollment and stuff every year, be reminded of that terrible person that they're no longer with. Or sometimes people die, and again, you don't want to see them necessarily, might bring out hard feelings. So you can uncheck that box to make them inactive, and then they don't show for the future and stuff like that. Now they can see inactive dependents if they want to, so if they need to see it, they can do it, but they can mark them as inactive there. You'll also see here we've got an age field next to the date of birth. So this wasn't there before. It's simply calculating the age as of today using the date of birth. So new thing in there. I did want to mention with the active, you cannot make somebody inactive as a dependent if they are currently active on benefits. So if this spouse is covered by medical insurance or something like that, I cannot make them inactive until that insurance has been expired. Then I'll be able to make them inactive. Just to show you over here, dependents and contacts, I can see them here. Here's a toggle to show the inactive ones. If I do want to do that, by default, we do not show them, but perhaps they would like to see it. I can do that right there. And then now I have an approval on it, so it's not, it's still showing there, but once it's approved, it would no longer show that dependent. All right, one last change in HR I wanted to talk about, and that's under the leave of absence. So leave of absence is something that we've had for a few releases now, but we've made some enhancements in here, specifically around the reason. So we had some feedback that the reason field, which previously was just a text field, we wanted to make it a standardized drop-down menu. So that's what we've done here. We've made this a drop-down menu where you can add your own values, but you'll see here some examples of leave reasons: family, medical, non-specified, exactly. You just put down whatever you like there. You can then also have this reason note if you want to get a little bit more detail. So this kind of duplicates how this was a free form text. Now you have this field here. You still have notes at the bottom, but this is the reason note if you wanted to do that. So you can now do that. There's a code table where you can add those if you need to. So that's now available for you. Again, that was one of our feature requests that came in, and we heard you, and we've made that change. So let's go ahead and put up a poll for these changes in HR, and we'll move on to payroll. We do thank you again for your feedback here on this poll and these new features that are out here. A couple more seconds. There we go. Thank you so much. So let's talk about some things in payroll. So we have a few things here. I'm going to go pretty quickly as I can here. First off, there's a vacation payout and or cash out option here. So we call it vacation, but think of it as time off. When you're doing your time off, you may want to allow your employees to cash out their time off balances for whatever reason, or when they terminate, you need to pay out the remaining balance of that particular plan. So that is handled with this new feature. So what we have is, let me go to the settings here. Under our time off plans, you can go to any time off plan where you might have this situation. On mine, I'm going to go to this one called full time. That's where I've set it up. And we have a new setting. available for you to do this. So on enhanced settings right here, top right, you'll see right here, payout on termination. So what this will do is if this checkbox is enabled and the plan is on an employee who's terminating, when you go to do their last check, you can have the system accrue through their termination date, figure out whatever their balance is, and then add that amount to payroll automatically. So if somebody had 45 hours of vacation, it would accrue through the end of their termination date, and maybe that ended up being 46 hours of vacation or something like that. It would then add that 46 hours into their payroll right then and there when you're doing their payroll. So we have a new option in here. Let me go into a payroll and show you this. I don't have somebody who I'm terminated, but I'm going to show you where you would do it right here. Load time off cash outs and payouts. So this will go through, and anybody who's terminated on this payroll, I don't have any, but anybody who's terminated in there, it would load that in there. So it does an accrual. It adds those hours to the payroll batch for that employee or those employees that are terminated. And you can, of course, have multiple plans where you have this. I've got vacation full-time. You may have seen I got a part-time and other ones in there. So it allows you to easily do that, and you can see the employees who are being paid out. Now, the other thing is a cash out. So perhaps you allow your employees to cash out their balance of time off of a certain plan. So if that's something you would like to do, there's two steps you need to do. One is you need to add a time off type called vacation cash out, or you go to one of your existing time offs and allow them to do that. I wouldn't recommend that because when you enable this, it removes certain fields. So I would say add a new one is the best or the only way to really do this. Where you would do that is in your code tables, under user codes, we go to our time off types, and you'll see here I have this one called VAC cash or vacation cash out, and this is a new field that is here. You would put true here if this is the code you use for cash out. So you might have PTO cash out, vacation cash out, whatever it is, you add those for the different ones that you're going to be using here. So true into this field. What that means is in self-service, when somebody makes a time off request, there's a small improvement here I'm going to show you as well. But when they make a time off request, this is the normal time off request, these fields here. This is the small improvement. It shows me my balance right there in self-service. But when I do a cash out, you'll notice all those fields on the right go away because we don't need an end date. We don't need all day and those things like that in a time, because what they're going to do is say, here's the date that I want to do the cash out. And let's say, I want to cash out my balances on May 10th or something like that. You'll see here they could put in a note if they want to. Of course, the document, maybe there's something they need to include in that. And then how many hours are they going to cash out? Maybe 10 hours or something like that. Now, the reason we do this is because previously you could do a cash out, but remember, there's only 24 hours in a day. And because we were tying it to each day, we couldn't do more than 24 hours at a time. So you had to do multiple entries. This makes it easy because you could do like 100 hours and it will do that. And it will take 100 hours out of their balance. So you could type in 100. And then again, when I go back over to payroll and I do this import and I hit load time off cash outs payouts, it would bring in that 100 hours into the employee. Now, it does still follow the same approvals and stuff like that. So if you had an approval for a cash out, it's got to go to their manager and whoever it is. Those approvals still apply to time off requests like that, even for cash outs. So that's vacation payout and cash out. Let's go to the next thing, which is retro pay improvements. So when you're doing a retroactive pay, which would be somebody's getting a pay rate change and it goes back to a previous period. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a pay rate change on somebody here. Charlene, you may have seen this before where you could put a pay rate change on somebody. Here you'll see she hasn't gotten one in a few years. So I'm going to put a pay rate change in effective back a couple of months, January of 2024. And she's getting a merit increase. And let's give her $15 an hour. So she's getting a big increase here from $9.56 to $15. And I'm going to submit this. All right, so I've submitted that in there and it's been approved automatically. So when I go back over to my payroll, I need to hit refresh. I may need to start a new payroll, but it should have a little icon over here. I don't know why it's not showing, but there's an icon normally for retroactive pay. So I'm going to just talk about this and we can show a little, we have a little like help on how this works. But previously and now there's a button that shows, I'm not sure why it's not showing right now, that would show that there is a retroactive pay available for one or more employees. When you click that button, what it will do is it will allow you to select the employees that you would like to do the retro pay for. Previously, we just did all employees. We didn't show you who it was. We just did it. It worked right. It was fine, but we didn't tell you, oh, here are the employees or the employee who's getting a retroactive pay increase. And so, it was good, but not great on that because you maybe not know who it is. You had to run reports later on and see, okay, these people are getting a retroactive pay. So, that's what it did before. So, like I said, we've improved this so you can actually see who you can check off who you want or check off all the employees and do that right out there. So also what it will do is it will add a note to their time entry, their payroll batch year, with the information about the retroactive pay. It will say you have a retroactive pay. The pay increase date was January 1st. You're paying this many hours of regular. Let's say it's 100 hours of regular at $2 an hour or whatever the increase was for $200. And you're paying 20 hours of overtime at $3 because it's time and a half. So you're getting, $30 for that. So it'll show you exactly what you're doing and then show a total. And it would show $230 or whatever it was that the employee is going to getting as a note, which you can edit. The notes are something where you can put in whatever you like in the note. So if you needed to edit that, if you wanted to say something, thank you for your, 5 years of service or something like that, you certainly can add into that note and edit it if you need to. So that's the retroactive pay. I'm not sure why I can't show it right now. It was working yesterday, but that's how that works right there. All right, so that's the retroactive pay improvements. A couple other things. Well, a big one here is expense report improvements. This was one where we got a lot of feedback on expense reports. So we've taken all those in and added those changes into expense reports. Let me talk about that right now because there's a lot of changes that are happening. So first off, you can choose the type of expense reports that you're doing. So when I do an expense report, let me show you that right here. I'm going to be given some options. So I'm going to add an expense report in here. First off, you can now choose what they are allowed to do right here. Maybe you don't do vacation pay requests here for vacation bank. This is different than the payout cash out. So you might not want to show that right there. You can choose just to show expense reimbursement. So that's one of the things you can do right there. Let me go ahead and put this. I'm going to go back and say this is actually for a conference this person went to way back in March. So you're going to say March 4th, and this is going to say the tech conference. Okay. So now he can put in the various things that he did there. He got a hotel, and the date of that was March 4th, and that was $600. Now, again, you can limit right here. Maybe you don't do cash advances, so you don't want to show this option. Maybe there are no corporate cards. You don't want to show that. Maybe it's no cash reimbursement. They just need to put the corporate card. Whatever, you can choose which options show right here. I have all three still enabled, but you can limit those if you like. All right. The project and task. Now, project and task were always available for us, but we now tie it to the timesheet. So if you use sub-project, if you use subtask, if you only use project, if you only use task, you can choose those fields there. You can even add custom fields. So if there's custom fields that you would like to add here, maybe they need to put in some additional information and under drop-down menu or something like that, you can add those custom fields. I'll show you where that is there. And of course, there are notes. Another big one is, let's say they need to put in their mileage. You'll see here, we have a couple of things. One is if they know I drove 50 miles, you can have the system calculate exactly what that is using the mileage rate. So they don't need to worry that the mileage rate is whatever it is today. They can have the system calculate that for them. So that's one option there, but you'll also see this great button here that allows you to calculate the distance. So they don't remember, they didn't look at their odometer when they left the house and, got to the hotel and so forth. You can just say, oh, let's calculate the distance. Let's put it in here, put in the address where I started at the White House, and then we drove to our office out here in Norwalk, and that is exactly 276 miles. So that's the path I took. The drive that I made is 276 miles. I can check it out on here. This is what I did. And let's go ahead and add these miles to the expense. There we go, 276 and a quarter miles, which is $179 according to my current rate in the system. So makes it very easy for the employee to not have to worry about this or calculate some number. They can put that in there like that. And then again, the project and task. So let's go quickly on how that works. I do want to remind you, if you've never seen it before, you can add attachments there to be able to do that. All right, so let's talk about how this works real quick. So a lot of these things are going to be set up in payroll. First off, I'm going to go to the incomes, and there's a new setting for any code that you would like it to be distance related. There, you can call it kilometers, you can call it distance, driving, something like that. Mine happens to be called mileage. So first off is the rate. So in my situation, I put down 65 cents per mile. I don't know, I can't remember what it was, but I think it's somewhere around there. But now we have a new system label here called distance that would need to be added to indicate, to have that button show up that says calculate distance. So all you got to do is add that button right there to any expense code, you see expense here, that you want to use the distance. If you have other ones where maybe they're getting some other amount, they type in a number of units and they get a rate, you could just put the rate but not have the distance. So they could still type in 5 and maybe they get $10 for every, whatever it is. It would do 5 times 10 and give them $50. So that rate would be used for that. All right, so that's how you get the distance to show up, and of course, how you get the system to calculate the amount from a number of units. It does need to be set as a unit in there for it to show up on there. How do you get those fields to show up on the timesheets, or from the timesheets to the expense reports? Over here, you'll see field configuration. And we have this new column called expense report. If it's checked here, it shows up on the expense report. You can't add columns that you're not using on a timesheet because they are tied together. It all goes into payroll. So you have to be using it on the timesheet. But I can use custom fields. So if you've got a custom field here and it's called, appointment or something like that, you could check that box off and then it's going to show up on your expense report. If I choose sub-project and I want to do that. And of course, if I want to change the label, I can do that right in there. Now, I don't have to have it show up on my expense report, though. If I want sub-project on the timesheet, but not the expense report, just don't check that box. All right, so that is right there. And I believe the other setting is right here. Here's the expense report purpose. If I don't want vacation requests in there, I can just, boom, remove that right there. And that would not be on there to have that. The other ones is in the code tables for the types, the advance, the cash advance, and the credit card. So if you don't want those, you can make those inactive over there. Okay, so that is the changes on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and submit this right here because I want to talk about the other change, which is, even though this is back in March, I'm running payroll today for the pay period that was last week. I want to bring that time or that expense into my payroll batch. So now we have it as open-ended. It's not going to just show the current period, and you have to guess, are there other ones out there? It's now going to show all approved requests that are out there to bring in here. So even though this one is, almost 3 years old, it has not been paid, and I want to bring this one in. So check this box off, and I can add that in there. Of course, if I want to look at it at date range, I can do that. So I can put in, January 1st to March 31st, and then just show those out there. Or I'm just looking for a certain employees, I could put their name in and find that person in there if I need to. All right, so I can do that right there and click add, and now it's going to add that person's expenses to their sheet here. So I can see the lodging and the mileage right there. Now, the one that I just did is not here yet because I have an approval on it. But once it's approved, it would show up and I could be able to do that. All right, so you can see how that is working for the expense reports, making that much more, much easier for your employees to do their expense reports in the system, as well as making it easier for payroll to bring them in. If I need to search here just for a certain employee, I can still do this and search for an employee, but that's much easier to add them all on the import screen if you like. All right. So lots of changes in expense reports. And I want to thank you guys for, I don't remember who it was that submitted it, but I want to thank you for doing that and giving us those great ideas on expense reports. Let's talk about another enhancement, and that is on the positions. It's possible when you set up a position that you might want to have some default income codes that get added to those employees for whatever reason. So now we have that where you can see incomes and deductions under positions. So if I click on incomes here, I can say here are the default incomes for this position. And I can say, well, they're going to have this brake and the grill assembly because they're a food vendor. And those will be added when I hire somebody, or if I transfer somebody into this position, they'll get these income codes. Same thing with deductions. Maybe there's certain deductions that should be added because he's a food vendor and he's going to have this hourly deduction, whatever that is. So let's go ahead and add that to that position. Again, when I hire them, they're going to get this deduction added automatically. So this is available here under positions, incomes, and deductions. And I apologize, I got to cut this a little short there because we're only 3 of the way down and we're already 40 minutes in. So we have a little quick poll here and I'll move on to our timesheets. This one will be quick. Again, a lot of great suggestions in here, so we'll talk about this. Thank you so much for that feedback. So let's talk about timesheets. There's a lot of information in there on timesheets and getting this stuff on your employees. So first thing first is if you do not have a timesheet for the current period and you click on enter time, the system will create a timesheet. Previously, what it said was there is no timesheet created and you kind of had to go and click add to get one added. But now when you click on enter time, if there's no timesheet, it will create the timesheet for you. So very simple little change in there is kind of like when you hit start time, what the system does in there. All right. So that's one of our changes in there. Let me now go to timesheets and show you some of the other things in here. I'm going to go to this previous timesheet. And one of the first things you'll see is we have a new button here that allows you to print the timesheet. So this will print out the timesheet for this employee, and you can look at it as a PDF. So a nice little feature there. I'll show you what this looks like here in a second because there's another printing that I want to do here as well. So that's printing of the timesheet. The other one is when I'm looking at the audit trail, I can now download a PDF copy of this or download it to Excel. So if I want a copy of this, I'm manager, payroll, something like that, I want to get a copy of this, I can download a copy of that right there. Let's show you what the timesheet printout and the audit trail look like real quick. This is the timesheet. All right, so you can see that. And this is the audit trail. You can see what the audit trail looks like. So right there, you can print those out, view those things, and take a look at them. So those new features are great to be able to get that information out of the system. It was obviously you could view it before, but not as easy to see it. There were reports you can run, but we've now made it so it's just right here. All right, if I submit my timesheet and it gets rejected back to me, I'm going to see down here at the bottom the reason that it was rejected. So I no longer have to guess or go back to the email or see the notification and see the reason why it was rejected back to me. So it's going to show right down here if something is rejected on my timesheet. So that is going to be on there. Also available is if the timesheet has been approved and now it's being recalled, I have an option in my settings for the workflow to require a reason for that recall. So I'm going to go to my timesheet workflow here real quick. Let me not show the active ones only. And you'll see right here, require recall comment for approved timesheets. So I can't just recall it without a reason, which you could do before. If I have that checked box, somebody's got to put in the reason that it is being recalled. All right. And then the last one is, you may have seen that I kind of tipped my hand a little bit in there. In your timesheet layouts, we have an option in here to now have a missing time entry alert. So you'll see when I check this off, I can tell the system, use these number of hours to send an alert out to people if they've clocked in and they have not clocked out. So using the start time of the day on your timesheet, maybe it's midnight or something like that, or these many hours since they clocked in, let's send them a reminder that they have not clocked out, which is great if they clock in the morning and they forget to clock out at the end of the day. They come back in the next morning, let's remind them like, hey, you forgot to clock out, so that way they don't, when they clock in the morning, it doesn't end that 24 hours and they clock back at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, start a weird cycle of in and outs that are all wrong. This will send them notifications saying, hey, you didn't clock out 10 hours ago, it's been 10 hours, you haven't clocked out, or whatever it is right there. To enable that, there's one other setting you need to do, and that's in the task scheduler. You would need to go out here and set up a task to do that. So I would add one out here. Don't know if it's that one here. I'm just going to show you where that is in the task scheduler. There's a new type in here under system that says timesheets missing entry notification. So this will send one, and you might want to send it to the employee, to their manager, to others. But if I do here, it's going to send it to the employee and say, hey, you clocked in at 8 o'clock. It's now 6 o'clock in the evening, and you haven't clocked out. And then it'll keep repeating based off of this interval right here to remind them that they need to clock out. Now, maybe it's legit. They might have been working literally 10 hours straight, and that's okay. They clock out and it will stop, but perhaps they forgot. That way it doesn't start this weird cycle of in and outs that are all wrong. All right, so quickly went through those timesheets. We'll throw up a poll on those. I see there's been a lot of Q&A, and we really do appreciate that. A lot of questions on these things, and those also provide us additional feedback because there's possible things we've missed in these things, and we're going to make enhancements based off of anything we might have missed or questions that have come up. Poll is going there. All right, so next thing we're going to talk about is a couple of things on onboarding. As you may remember, we did add some onboarding features, or a big enhancement to onboarding last time, and we're going to talk about some enhancements that we've had since that time frame. So one is in here, you can now add company policies. So you'll see I've got the ability when I add in here that I can choose a company policy, or multiple, of course, if I want to do that. But let's just say this code of conduct policy, and I can add that to my onboarding screen there. Also in here, you'll see where I can do a request for an employee to upload a document. Maybe you need them to upload a copy of their license or something like that. So you might want to request that document from the employee, and you say, what document do you need? And you can add multiple. Maybe you want to say driver's license, proof of insurance, something like that. So you can say license and proof of insurance. And what that will do is in the immersive onboarding, they'll be able to upload those documents that are going to go into the documents folder of the employee, and they can add those in there. The little trash can says, I don't need a proof of insurance, and I can remove that. All right, so those are new things in there. We did add it so you don't need to show their employee the total name there. So it wouldn't say John Smith, it would say, just John. So you'll be able to customize this in here. And so that's also added in there. We've also added a great dashboard for the employees that are either the managers or administrators to be able to see the status of people's onboarding. You'll see that right here in HR onboarding. This allows me to track the status of my employees onboarding. So you could do this before, but it was individuals. You had to know exactly who to go to. Here now you can see at a high level where people are with their onboarding. All right, now you'll see here's somebody who's new. He has some tasks that are due pretty quickly though. So it lets us know he's due soon. So he needs to get these things done out there, and you'll see all that stuff. Now, anything that's within a week is due soon. Anything that's more than a week, he's on track. And then anything that's overdue is off track. So you can see how that is out there. Here, you'll notice the searching options. So if I want to narrow it down to a certain department or something, I could do that there. If I want to remind John or Heather or anybody else that they need to do something, I can check the box next to them, and this will send them reminders of everything that they need to do. All right, I do want to show you also a great little enhancements that we've added in here in the onboarding. I'm going to log in as John, that new employee, and you're going to see that onboarding is actually the very first thing that comes up. So he doesn't have to click on the widget anymore. It takes him to onboarding right away because he has onboarding tasks to complete. Here you'll see he can click on this person and see the person, where they are, their business phone number and email address, and they can now reach out to that person rather than just seeing the name and having to look it up somewhere. They can click on it and see that information. All right, here's a special section just for policies, so it's separated out. And you can see that. And also the same thing works with the people that are similar roles. They can see those people right here. All right, so that is some of the enhancements here. And we do have more coming for this that you will be able to show you in our next webinar, but you'll see that right there. And then, of course, if they want to get back to the main ESS page, they can go to the regular menus, but it goes here by default. So that is our onboarding enhancements, and we're going to go ahead and throw up a poll for that one. I do want to mention that I didn't show it in the task scheduler, but things that have due dates, like those onboarding tasks, the system can remind people that they are due. So you might have something due in like 3 days. You can have the system remind them, hey, this onboarding task has not been completed. It is due in 3 days. It's due in 2 days. It's overdue. It can remind them automatically. So you don't have to use the dashboard to remind them. The dashboard is kind of like an additional reminder. And I do want to point out just real quick, this is a manager's view of that onboarding. So his employees, he could see who needs to do what and notify them. But these dates, we do have reminders on these dates, so you can have that automatically go out there. All right, let's look at a couple of things here in self-service. So one is on the community feed. When I go to post a message now, I have some new fields. One is a subject line. So this goes at the top of the message, and you can be the subject for this. It's optional. You don't need to use the subject line. Here you can have an expiring date. So after this date, the post goes away and it doesn't show up here anymore. So you have those two options on there. You also have the ability now, if you would like to allow somebody to edit somebody else's posting. So you might have HR kind of like as an overview, but managers are allowed to post. If HR sees something that they go, whoa, you shouldn't be saying that, you can edit or delete that post. So here I am, I'm in as Ted, and oh, is it not showing? I apologize. Let me show this again. So here are the community feed, the new subject line and expiration date fields are right here. Otherwise, very similar. The different buttons are all the same, but subject and expiration date, and then editing an existing post. So maybe Ted doesn't want Chris showing everybody that he's such a huge Queen fan. So he can go, you know what, I'm going to edit this message, and I could do one of two things. I could delete it, or I can go ahead and, change this message. But here you'll see the subject line and the date. So you can have control over this stuff if you want like HR to be kind of like, let people message, but I'm going to be, the policeman to make sure that they don't do anything wrong. So you can do that. Now, let me just show you real quick where that is set up. So in your community, you could set that up over here. And go out to this webinar community here. And in the group, you'll notice that if they can post, I have the ability for them to be able to edit or delete. So I might have like HR can post and they can also edit and delete, but maybe managers can only post. So it allows you to do that control if you want to do that on there. All right, so those are the new features in the community. I do want to point out another thing that we've added in the team section of this, and that is team education, skills, and certifications. So as a manager, you could see that information for your employees, and I could see that Chris went to the University of Connecticut and he has this degree. I can search for different people up here at the top and see that information. I also have team skills. So I want to see those skills my employees have, again, with a search out there. And then finally, the team certifications. I could see those certifications that they have. If I want to choose to hide the inactive ones, I could do that. And those ones that are inactive will pop out, and I could see ones that are expired. So those are 3 new fields that are available to the managers within self-service. And let's go ahead and put a poll up for that. Okay, I think is it still going? All right, so let's talk about some improvements in documents very quickly here. Adding folders to all employees. So you can now add folders in the settings to all of your employees if you like to. So in your documents here, I can add folders if I need to. Right here, you'll see add folder. And so I can create a new folder. Let me just call this webinar as an example. And I can add a new folder for the employees. I can set the access on here if I need to, or edit this. I can set this or set the group that can see this folder if I want to. And then I can save things into that folder if I need to. It allows me to create folders within the system folders, system report document folders if I need to do that. So I could say maybe just the hourly employees or something like that can see that webinar folder, or maybe I misspelled something and I want to change that. So that is being able to create a new folder in the documents. Also, the ability to mass export documents from employees. So this is one where it's really great because previously you could export out individual documents, but now you might have several documents you want to export out of a folder. You can now mass export out folders. So you'll see here, I can do like individual, but we also have the ability to select more than one. If he had more than one, let me just see if I could find one where he's got more than one. Here we go. And I can download all of the ones that are selected. So this will send out all 3 of these, and I'd be able to see those documents and export them all out. And then finally, for our American friends here, in the ACA, if you would like to publish the ACA forms out to self-service, you can do that. You do need to establish where it's going to be published to. That's in your documents and document publishing. But you'll have a button to publish out your ACA forms to the employees. So they'll be able to see them individually. Previously, you had to like upload them one at a time, which was very time consuming. So now you can publish them out just like you can with the tax documents and stuff like that. So we're going to throw a quick poll up on there. I realize we only have a few minutes left, but I think we're going to get through everything here. Samantha, you're asking a question I'm just about to answer. I saw that question about this. So we're going to talk about some improvements in recruiting, including this one right here, which is Samantha's question. So sharing job postings. So this will allow you to share job postings with somebody else if you'd like to do that. So let's go over to talent, and we'll look at that here. If I go to the job page, actually, let me show you this real quick because it's the very first thing on this one. See a little red dot? That means there are new candidates for these positions. And you'll notice over here, it's telling me how many are new since I last came to this screen. So haven't been here in a little while, and I can see there's a bunch of new candidates for these positions. So visually allowing you to see there are new candidates. There are, of course, notifications to let you know, but sometimes you're just on the screen, you don't see the notifications, don't see your email. But here I can see there are new people for these positions here. All right, so 3 new here and a little red dot. So that is one thing to look at here. Let me go to my candidate portal very quickly. Okay, so there's a new button down here. Allows me to share this position with somebody if I want to allow them to see that. You'll see I can copy this if I like to, or if I want to click share by email, that'll open my default email and allow me to email that to somebody if I want to share this posting. So that is available now for that. One other thing talking about is searching for employees by, or not employees, but candidates by email address. So you could type in the email address for the person here and get their candidate profile. I don't know if I have my email address in there. I don't, but if I did, I would find myself in there and I'd be able to see that candidate. So this new field is available, email, and you can search by email here. Let me use this one and you'll be able to find John and myself. I'm in here twice with that email address. All right, so that is searching by emails. And then we'll talk about candidate documents, saving the candidate documents. Let me just click on John here as an example. And it's possible he has attachments and things like that that are in here. So when you have attachments or other forms, you might want to say that they go to a specific folder within the system. That's something you could do with employees today, but we've now enhanced it so you can do it with anything you want in the system. So if I go to a form, and I would like it to go to a certain folder, I can say this job description goes to a certain folder. So you'll see here the type right here. In the settings for document types, you can say the default folder for a document. I'm going to show that very quickly in here in your code tables. When I go to my document locations, why is it not showing? Just do this. There we go. When I go to my document locations, I can say the document type and the document location code right here. So this would look at these right here. And I can say, oh, this one here goes to confidential as an example. So I'm just going to call it confidential file, go to that document, and it will go to that particular folder if they fill out that document. So let's just say the resume, I would like it to go to that particular folder called confidential file. When a candidate becomes an employee, anything in there that's a type of candidate resume will go to the confidential file folder for that employee. So you can set these up. When you set up the different forms and so forth, you can say exactly where that goes. And that way, when that person is hired, it will go into that particular folder that you have configured in here for the types of documents. So you can set all that up and then we'll scatter the forms out to the various folders that you have done. Now, if you don't have one and you've got that document there, let's say like this cover letter, it's going to go to that candidate documents folder by default. If you do not set it, that's where it will go by default. But if you do have it set, it will go to that particular screen. So I can go ahead and do that in there. So if I do these forms, I don't know if he's got one, this form might go to a particular folder. It will go there when they become an employee. I believe that answers Samantha's questions. And let's go ahead and throw up a poll. I know we're over by 2 minutes, but I have 2 more things to show before we're over here. I want to talk about 2 reports and then we can all go and enjoy our weekend. All right, so 2 reports I want to talk about here that we've made enhancements to. Now, there are other reports. I just don't have time to show them all. But let's talk about the turnover report. So this is available under system. There's one here called turnover rate. You can now tell the system to exclude different termination reasons if you would like. So as an example, if they transfer to another employer, maybe you're not counting that as a turnover because they're still an employee. They just got moved. And so you don't want to count them in there or any other reason. You'll notice here, I could select more than one reason if I want to exclude them from this particular report. And then when you run it, it will just ignore those employees and won't include them at all on the report. So that's on the turnover rate report. You can now exclude one or more reasons. And then on the benefit coverage report, which is right here, you can now run this by employee group. So this field has been added and you can select one or more group to run this report by those groups right there. So just 2 enhancements to the reports that I wanted to point out. There are others, as I mentioned, but these 2 I wanted to point out to people. Again, these came in as CFR, so we want to make sure that people see those. And we'll throw up one last poll before we say goodbye to each other. All right. So thank you for that right there. So I do want to point out, obviously, today we did the webinar um, on the 26th. You might be watching this in the future, though. So that just a reminder there. The release date is April 29th. So what I've been showing you is not available today. You got to have a nice weekend and then you can enjoy it on Monday. So everything you've seen there, plus more, there was so much I could not cover it all. It's in our release notes if you have specific things in there. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everything today. I do want to point out one other thing here. Our upcoming Criterion Learning Series webinars next week on Tuesday, we're going to cover benefits. It's something that we are revisiting because since the last time we did it, we've had a number of enhancements. So we want to make sure we cover those enhancements and show you how to do benefits setup. And then because we're covering benefits, we also want to talk about open enrollment. So, I have a typo. It's not May 14th for that one. Is May 28th is going to be our company policies one on there. Let me just fix that. So you'll be able to do that one out there. I don't know where my Zoom window went, but 14th is open enrollment and the 28th is our company policies one. So that's a new enhancement. We're going to talk about that in just a few weeks. As a reminder, you've had a lot of great questions that came in through the Q&A and everything like that. You could call us, you can email us, you can use the help within the system to reach out to us if you have any questions on anything that we released in our latest version. The release notes will be in the software under the help menu. I believe it also went out as an email invite to included the release notes. If you, of course, would like to see them, we can send them to you as well. You can just reach out to us. We'll be happy to share those, but they will be in the software too, so you can see those. So thank you so much for your time today. Really do appreciate it. And thank you to our team and everybody who had great suggestions for enhancements to the software. Really do appreciate it. We really hope you enjoy all these enhancements. And I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much.